Now, as many of you may remember, there was a rapper named Soulja Boy who was doing this interview about a time that his house was getting robbed. Now, in the story, he says he came out with the thang, ga. Now, many people thought he was lying because how he was telling the story. It was pretty exaggerated. But what if I tell you he was actually telling the truth? Maybe. Let me tell you what really happened and then you'll see what I mean. Now, first of all, for those of you that don't know, Soulja Boy's a rapper who got famous doing that Crank That dance. He had that song Kiss Me Through the Phone, and you remember Soulja Boy. Anyway, back in the day, he's releasing this album, right? So he has an album release party at one of his clubs. Okay, album release party goes great. So he drives home with his friends. They chilling. And then Soulja Boy has a problem. One of his friends slides in and says, "Big Soulja." He says, "Yeah." They said, "Yeah, I think some of your fans might have followed us to your house." Soulja says, "What?" They say, "Yeah, I seen a car drive past. I think it's one of your fans." Soulja said, Nah. Boom, they hear a noise. Now, Soulja Boy is in his home studio with his close friend A-Rap. Remember that name, that's important. That's when he hears the noise. Soulja Boy peeks outside. He sees a bunch of people running around. He looks back at his friend A-Rap and he says, "Yo, pass me the ting." A-Rap passes him the ting. Soulja Boy jumps outside and starts dumping. He gets one of them. The rest run away. The dude on the floor, Soulja Boy, he lifts the mask. And it's someone he recognizes. A man named Dupe, who's also important to the story. Remember that name. Soulja Boy, in his words, says, "Dang, God. Let's 2 more of them things go." The interviewer in this interview asked Soulja Boy, "Wait, so you him?" Soulja Boy says, "No, of course." Then Soulja Boy changes his answer. He says, I don't want to speak on that." Now, everything I just told you was Soulja Boy's rendition of the story, but here's where it starts to get wicked. Remember, you had some homework. I told you to remember the names A-Rap, his close friend, and Duke, the guy Soulja Boy says who he recognized when he took off the mask. Now, Soulja Boy never mentioned his name. He just said, "I recognize the guy." Dupe comes out and says, "It was me." And he says, "Yes, Soulja Boy certainly did me." But then he unveils his own set of details about what happened that night. Remember what we have so far. Soulja Boy comes home from an album release party. He sees people outside. Soulja Boy starts, then Soulja Boy recognizes the guy Dupe says, "Well, first of all, the reason why Soulja Boy recognized me is because we were all close to Soulja Boy. You see these fellows behind Dupe? Well, Dupe was their managers, and they were dancers under Soulja Boy's record label. This is all true." Now, these gentlemen then make a song, and I want you to listen to this next part closely. While they were at Soulja Boy's album release party, they hear their song on Soulja Boy's album. But Soulja Boy never told them he was putting their song on the album. They just hear a Soulja Boy verse on it, and it's a Soulja Boy song now. They go, "Yo, we never gave that song to Soulja Boy." They look to their manager, Dupe, and say, "Yo, can you ask Big Soulja about this?" Dupe says, "Gotcha." And now here's where the stories start to differ. Dupe says he pulls up to Soulja Boy's house. He was invited, he says. You'll see why their stories differ so much in a second, but he says he goes to the house. He says, "Soulja." Soulja says, "Huh?" Dude says, "Huh?" Boom, smash Soulja with the palm. Soulja immediately ups the pole. Apparently, Soulja liked that. He said, "Word." Dude said, "Word? What you finna do with that?" Palm. Gives him another one. That's 10 at this point. 5 plus 5. Soulja said, "Huh? Got. Let them things go." Dude runs outside. His boy also pulled up with him, I forgot to mention. But he was just sitting in the car. He thought it was going to be a quick thing. He goes and he grabs Dupe and takes him to the hospital. Dupe wakes up with handcuffs on him, and now here's where everything ties together. Basically, what Dupe is trying to say is Soulja Boy made up that whole story because Soulja Boy didn't want to get in trouble. Dupe smacked him. Soulja Boy up the pole. But again, this is according to Dupe. Remember, Soulja Boy said, "Some people broke in my house, I them." Dupe is saying no one broke in his house, he just me, and is trying to cover up the story. The police, though, said, "We're just gonna put you in handcuffs while we figure out which one of y'all is lying." Well, I can't tell you why, but it seems they believe Soulja, so they took Dupe and his partner to jail. They tell him, "Look, y'all try to rob Big Soulja? 25 to life." They said, 25 to what? They said, nah, with what evidence? What evidence does Soulja Boy have? The police said, "All right, we'll give you 10 to 15. They said, where's the evidence? The police said, why you keep asking the same question? They said, okay, we finna get a good lawyer. And oh boy, did they get a good lawyer. A man by the name of Brian Steele, the man who basically got Young Thug freed. He walked in and he said, yo, Popo. And they said, oh, that's Brian. He said, yo, where the evidence? The police go, evidence? Now, at this point, the police already had Dupe locked up for 9 months. So Brian tells them, look, you give him 3 more months, we'll call it a year, you let him go. We don't gotta do a trial, we don't gotta fight this and that. 3 more months. Police say, all right, deal. So it seems police don't even have crazy evidence about what happened that night, and it was left to a he said, she said type thing. But final person I wanna mention is Soulja's friend A-Rap. Now, A-Rap and Soulja Boy stopped being friends a while back. They had a falling out, which is actually pretty important to the story. That means he really doesn't have a reason to lie for Soulja Boy. If anything, he'd probably make him look bad. But he says, look, people came into the house with masks. Soulja Boy's story is true. And when he does start to recap the story, his voice gets a little shakier and he seems a little shaken up. It seems he's telling the story from a traumatized point of view. He says the element of surprise, Soulja Boy just jumping out and spraying, is what saved them that night. That being said, I can't 100% say who was telling the truth. Not even the police can, even though they seem to be leaning more towards Soulja Boy's side of the story. So you tell me what sounds more believable. Did Soulja Boy make everything up so he wouldn't get in trouble for this guy, Dupe? Or did Dupe and his crew get mad that Soulja Boy may have taken their song and try to rob him? You let me know in the comments.